In this example, we're going to be dividing complex numbers. And the way that we are going to be dividing complex numbers is we don't want the denominator to have any complex numbers, so that we don't want them to have I in the denominator. So just in the same way when we used to rationalize denominators a few sections ago, we're going to do the same kind of principle. We want to multiply by its conjugate to get rid of the complex number in the denominator. So check this guy out right here. If I have a 3 minus I, my goal is to divide 23 minus I by 3 minus I. Well, what I want to do is actually multiply by its conjugate, because we don't want to have a complex number in the denominator. We want to multiply this by 3 plus I, and then 3 plus I. Okay, so let's first do the numerator. Okay, and this is just like last example where we're going to do FOIL here. Okay, so 23 and 3 is 69, and this is 23 and 3, and then 23 and I is a positive 23I, and then negative I and 3 is negative 3I, and then negative I times the positive I is negative I squared. Okay, and if you want to simplify the numerator some more, we can. Let's just go ahead and just work with the numerator, and then we can just replace it. So I know that I can combine these guys. So I get 69 plus 20I, and then look right here, minus I squared. Well, I squared is negative 1, so negative 1 times a negative is a plus 1. So really this is 70 plus 20I. Okay, so this whole entire numerator just becomes 70, or it became 70 plus 20I, and now, and now the denominator, or 3 minus I times 3 plus I. Just remember here, this looks like this right here, right? Remember how we learned that x minus y times x plus y is x squared minus y squared, right? This is actually a difference of 2 squares. I have a difference of 2 squares, and it's written as x minus y times x plus y. So the shortcut is I just take the first term and I square it, and I take the second term and I square it. Now, of course, if you want to, you can do the FOIL method, but I'm just trying to get you used to seeing these little shortcuts and these patterns right here. All right, so I take the first one and I square it, 9, and then I do minus, and I take the second term and then I square it, so I get I squared. And if you can see right now, see how the i's are going to cancel? This I is going to be gone now because I squared is negative 1. So I get 70 plus 20I all over. This is a negative times a negative 1. I squared is negative 1. So 9 minus a negative 1 is just 10. Okay? Right? Because 9 minus a negative 1, and then 9 plus 1 is 10. So I went a little faster. How did I get 10? By doing this right here. I squared is negative 1. Bring down the 9, bring down the negative. 9 minus a negative 1 is 10. Now check this out, okay? See how 10 can go into 20 and 10 can go into 70, okay? But as of right now, there's a plus sign, so I can't divide anything into these guys yet. I need to factor out our GCF. Okay, so I'm going to factor out a 10 out of 70 and 20, meaning the left-hand side is going to be 7 plus 2i. 10 times 7 is 70. 10 times 2i is 20i, right? And that's all over 10. So now, like, this 10 is connected by a multiplication sign. That's fine. We can cross those guys out like that, and then we simply get 7 plus 2i, and that's what I'm talking about. All right, so this is what we were looking for. Now coming over here to part B. Part B now, okay, so again, we want to get rid of the I in the denominator. So we're going to multiply by the conjugate, okay, and how do we multiply by the conjugate when it's just a single term, okay? And all you do is you just do the same term, but just minus. So I'm going to multiply by a negative I, Okay, so that's the conjugate. The conjugate of I is negative I. The conjugate of A is negative A. So it's just going to be the opposite sign. All right. So let's do the numerator first. 5 minus I times negative I. So let's go ahead and do the distributive property. So negative I times 5 is a negative 5I. And then negative I times the negative I is a positive I squared. All right? And if we clean this up right here, this means negative 1, right? I squared is negative 1, so we have negative 5I minus 1. Okay, so that's the whole top. The entire numerator can be written as negative 5I minus 1. Now the denominator is positive I times the negative I. So isn't that negative I squared? Right? Well, I squared, don't be tricked now, I squared is negative 1. But negative 1 times a negative is a positive 1. So really this is 5I minus 1 over 1. Okay, but do we ever have to put a 1 in the denominator? No, right? I mean, yeah, you can put it there, but it's not necessary. It doesn't make it more correct. So actually, I'm just going to erase that 1 there, and our answer would be just simply this then. Negative 5I minus 1.